Are you a writer looking for the best possible writing strategy, but you're not sure what to have on your screen, what programs to use, and how to get your book written in a way that's going to be effective for you? The Show Me How You Write series is actually going to introduce you to how several different best-selling and award-winning authors write their stories. We're going to be taking a look on screen at exactly what they've got going on and their process for writing their story so that you can copy it and see if it's a good fit for you. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the way that I write my books, and we're going to be talking about three main sections that I have up on my screen, which type of programs I'm using, and the steps I take once I'm done writing my story to make sure I'm ready to go to the next level with my book. As a best-selling young adult author of sci-fi, fantasy, and retellings, I have honed my skills over the last 3.5 years to develop what is a very simplistic process for myself that actually saves me a lot of time, a lot of effort. It keeps me very focused without distraction, and it's incredibly helpful for my physical well-being as well. So let's take a look at what I have on my screen. And don't forget, not every method is going to be for every person. Just because this works for me and people like me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So if this method isn't for you, hit the subscribe and notification bell, because we're bringing you so many other authors with so many other methods, and one of these will click with your style and your way of writing to make the best possible fit for you. So listen to mine, see if it makes sense, see if there's little bits of information you can take from it, even if the overall method is not for you, and learn and grow from it. And then stay tuned, because we're bringing in tons of other people to help educate you and offer really great methods that might be the absolute perfect fit for you. When I write, I have three main screens up on my computer so that I can easily see all the information I need as I'm writing my book. Now, I am writing inside of a Word doc because that is the easiest for me. Some people use Google Docs, but then they have to transfer it to a Word doc to submit it or query it to an agent or a publisher, so it just makes more sense for me to start directly inside of a Word doc. However, I understand that Google Docs are great for traveling on the go. Now, with mine, I do have my manuscript in the middle, and the first thing you're going to notice is that it is a weird colored background. I've actually changed this a little bit so that it's easier on my eyes. That white background with black text can be really straining on eyes. It can give you a lot of headaches. It's not something I like, and I learned the hard way over and over again that changing my background color and font is definitely key to dying while I'm writing or surviving while I'm writing. So I have found that a cool tone tan is the best for me. This might be a little bit different for you, so I do suggest you play around with it to see what's going to work best. I do not recommend those warmer tones. That tends to not work so well. For me, at least, it gives me more headaches, but it's a lot better than that white-based background with the black text. And I only do this to the document I'm writing in. I do not do it to the either document on the side so that it stands out and it's different. So I switch it over to that tan color, and then I switch my font to a white to stand out against that darker background. Now over to the left, I have my timeline. So I write the chapter number for the page it is inside of my Word document where it starts so I can easily find it. And then as I'm writing, I am filling out every little thing that happens. And if I'm going to be plotting, you guys know I am right in between plotting and pantsing. So I know like the main stepping stones of my story, and then I fill in the little details as I go. So if I know that I have something I want somewhere, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a note in this timeline where I think it's going to be. And then when it starts to fill in at the chapters, I'll move the location so that it actually matches what I need. So I'll start off with chapter 1. Obviously, that's on the first page for me. And I'm going to write all the bullet points of everything that happens in that first chapter. Now, sometimes I get really detailed with this, and sometimes I'm just very much in the moment, so I'm writing those big details because I already know the tiny details that are associated with it. So it really just depends on my mindset as I'm going, but I write down any details that I'm going to need to know or refer back to later, or if somebody asks me, hey, where did this happen? Or, hey, can you look up this thing related to this thing? I know exactly where to find it through my timeline. So I put the chapter number, the page number, and then if it's a dual point of view story, I'll also put who is speaking in that particular chapter so that you know. And as I'm going, if I come up with ideas that I want to put in the future chapters for this book, I actually go ahead and I add it to the bottom. So let's just say this is the very last thing that I have written. Wow, that is a thing to see there. I would then go down beneath it and then add in these things that I want to see happening. And then once I've got them inside of a chapter, I'll just delete the spaces in between it to bring it up to that chapter. And then I'll keep going from there. And sometimes ideas that I have for future chapters may not make it in, so I'll leave those down on the bottom. Bonus pro tip, I also use a calendar to keep track of what's happening on different days during my stories. Now, I could print out a monthly calendar if I know what month it is, but in all honesty, dates don't really matter. So I just print out a grid, I label it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then I just fill it in starting on whichever day I choose to start that month on, and then I can keep track of what's happening on what day, and I write down every little detail, every little bullet point, just like on my timeline on my screen, so that I can easily access it and go back to check that later on. Now over on the right side of my screen, I actually have my characters, and this is incredibly important. I've learned this the hard way. Anytime I introduce a new character, whether they are a teeny tiny character or a big, massive, important character, I write them down. I do kind of organize this in terms of who's important or who we see the most. And so my main characters will all be up at the top, and I'm going to list any important details about them. Hair color, eye color, hair length, how tall they are, their specific words that they say, ways to pronounce their names if they're words that are a little bit harder to say, any family connections, anyone they're dating, any injuries that they acquired during the course of the story, so that I don't, cut someone's forehead while they were in battle and then all of a sudden they're perfectly fine in the next scene. So I write down everything you need to know about them inside of here. And yeah, I actually did remove a lot of things before I showed you this because of spoilers. So usually it's a lot more fleshed out. But that way I can go back and look if somebody has a question for character art later on or cosplaying later on, just so I can send that easy description to them. It's already there and I don't have to go back and look and double check. Did they have blue eyes? Did they have purple eyes? Did they have green eyes? I know already because it's inside of my character list. And then for writing, I don't bother with too much formatting. So I will always list chapter 1 up at the top. I will make sure I have any of my indenting set up beforehand, so that's ready to go. And then I just go down through it. So as I'm writing, I just write chronologically in order as it happens so that I don't have any gaps, I don't have any plot holes, I don't have any issues, and I make sure I write really, really tight so there is no wiggle room for adding things in or taking things out as I go, and potentially messing things up as I go. So I write very, very tight, not something I always did, definitely something I learned was important to do. Once I have finished that chapter, I'm just going to space down to the next page so that it starts on its own page. And this really doesn't matter too much until we get to formatting. So if I'm formatting my own books, it really doesn't matter. The formatting doesn't have to look great here, but I just kind of space down to it. Right here, I obviously changed something about up in the first chapter, so we've got this little bit of a gap, but usually it is higher up, so right at the top of the page, and then we're good to go. If you are going to be querying this at any point for anybody, or even sending it to your formatter, you want to make sure you've got those headers and footers in there with your name and your book title and all those important things so that people can easily identify your manuscript should they lose it in their file somewhere and stumble across it a month or two later and they aren't sure what it is or where it belongs to. Make sure you have all of your metadata in there because that's really important. And then I just write through to the end of my story. Now, once I finished my writing, I actually go and I do my self-editing. So I will sit here and I will read through the entire manuscript on this cool tone tan background. I always make sure, and this is a pro tip for you, because you have to be so careful with your vision while you're reading because it can give you migraines, it can deteriorate your eyes, you have to be careful. I do recommend blowing your font up. So you can either write with a bigger font or better yet, you can just use this feature to zoom in and out so that it is the same or appropriate size font and then you can just see it bigger if you need to. You can of course reformat it to the size you need later on if you are changing the font size. But 12 or 14 font is kind of industry standard, and then you can use whatever font is comfortable for you to read and write in, and then just change it when you're going to be submitting it to whatever they require. So I do recommend zooming in if you need to see it, and I 100% recommend if you are writing, it can be smaller, but if you're reading it, if you're proofreading it, it should be bigger. It will save your eyes, and 100% of the time use blue light blocking glasses because this will make or break your migraines and your eye strain. Now, I do go over it and I self-edit this. So I usually take a day or two in between finishing it and jumping into reading it so that I have a little bit of space and clarity. And then I will start to look for typos. I will start to look for grammar issues. I will start to look for punctuation issues. And I will make sure I'm not getting any plot holes, making sure I don't duplicate saying things. Because every once in a while, you will say a specific topic, and then in the next chapter, you're going to reiterate that, but you didn't need to because you already said it. So you just need to make sure that you don't have anything repetitive. And usually beta readers will catch that for you, but you will also catch some of your own work while you're doing this too. So I self-edited just on my own. I go through and I look through all of that stuff. Then I'm going to put it through either Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid, or if you have access to both, put it through both. They catch different things. So I've self-edited. I am then putting it through Pro Writing Aid or Grammarly, which I will link down below for you guys. And then I'm going through and checking what they say. So it'll come up on screen and it will say, oh, here's an error. Oh, here's an error. Is this an error? Is this an error? And you will have the ability to say yes or no, and you'll be able to go in and change that. And then once you're done with that, I send it off to my beta readers. They check it over for me. I'll get their notes back. I will go through those. I'll make sure I change anything that I need to. I'll make sure I didn't catch any more spelling or grammar issues, especially if they caught some for me. And if I change things, if I change chunks of my writing, not just a couple words here or there, but if I'm actually like adding in things to the scenes or filling out descriptions, if it's anything more than a few words, I will send it through Pro Writing Aid and Grammarly again to make sure that I have not added in new errors. Once I'm done with that, it then goes off to professional editing or to querying. So you want to make sure that you are really, really good at polishing this up before you send it off to anybody who's going to be doing this professionally, because they are going to be able to catch a lot, but they're not going to be able to catch everything if there's millions and millions of errors. So get rid of as much as possible that you can do first and that your beta readers can do first, and then send it off to the professionals to make sure it really is as perfect as it possibly can be before it goes out to the world. So for me, I just have 3 basic screens. It's my manuscript, my timeline to my left side with my page numbers, chapter numbers, and point of view of whoever's speaking, and then over on the left side or the right side, I do have all of my characters, their full out descriptions, anything I need to know or remember, especially if it's going to be a series or a continuation of a book. And then if it is a series, this is the same. I do not change my character list. I keep adding to it. And I can make a note that this happened in the second book or this happened in the third book. And sometimes I even continue on with my timelines. So I'll have book 1, and then at the end I'll have book 2, then I'll go with book 3. Sometimes I do them individually depending on how I feel when I start that book. Now, on occasion, I will have extra screens, but I don't have them on my screen while I'm working. They will be down below, and those will be notes on things that I want to add in. So if I have a scene that I very vividly, clearly see and I want to write that in, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to just like fill out that paragraph or write down those lines or whatever it happens to be, but I don't want it in my main manuscript. I don't want it to get confused. I don't want it to end up in the wrong space. So I put it in an extra document, and I put it down on the bottom if I need it. If I need to think something through, or if I need to talk something through for myself, I will pull up an extra window, an extra Word doc, and I'll just start taking notes. If this happens, this happens. If this happens, if this happens. If this happens, does this make sense? And I just kind of talk myself through it like a sounding board, and when I do the act of typing it out, it helps me to process it a little better. Sometimes I will have imagery on screen. So if I have scenery that I really, really like, I will pull that up. Sometimes I'll keep it down on the bottom. Sometimes I'll keep a Photoshop window up here, which means I will shrink the size of my character list down to the bottom half of my screen and put a visual up at the top, just if I really need to like be able to describe the city they're in and it looks very similar to this, or in this case, they were out with like the mountains and like the cliffs and the greenery, and so I had some very like greenery, mountain, viney type things up in the corner just so I could see them. If you use imagery of people for like hair inspiration or character inspiration, you can have those up as well. Just do not use those ever. Do not use any visuals ever to promote your book or to talk about your book or anything online, anything public, because it's copyright infringement unless you took the image or you licensed the image. So a lot of people do like aesthetic-y things. All those are illegal and can be fined dramatically, so please don't do that. But if you just need it for yourself, for a visual while you're writing, that's a fine thing to have up there, and I just put it in my top right-hand corner so that I can see it. I did, and this is kind of fun, when I was writing my mermaid stories, I actually had a live stream of from an aquarium. And it showed like their fish tanks, or there were cameras out like in the actual ocean. You could just watch the fish swim by and like the seaweed moving when it stormed and like all the really cool stuff. And so just to kind of feel like I was underwater, I actually had that live stream going in the corner so that I could see bits of it. I didn't see a ton of it, but I had it going so that I could see the underwater currents and the fish and the moving things. And it just kind of put me in the right mindset to be writing my mermaid books. So that was a visual I had up in the top right-hand corner so that I could see it. And I usually shrink the character list because that's less important to me than my timeline, so I know what's going on. So I always make sure that this is the one that I shrink with the characters because it's easy to scroll when I need it, but I would much rather have my timeline in full form so that I can easily go through that. And that is my simple way of writing. If I then need to put it through any other programs, I can go ahead and do that. I can transfer it to a Word doc if someone needs to see it that way. And I always, and this is incredibly important, please listen to me. Every single day I write, every single time that I write, if I am going to be shutting down my computer, I will save all 3 of these documents, make sure that they are saved. I will close them down, and then I will take that folder that they are in and copy it, the entire folder, to another drive. So I save it on my external hard drive, I save it on a jump drive, and I may even save it in more than one location because computers frequently will delete parts of your manuscript. There have been times when I have lost over half of a manuscript, and if I did not have those backups, I would have had to have rewritten that entire thing. So I always save it in at least one other place, and we're talking not just another folder on your computer, but another jump drive or external hard drive, something where you can get it from a different device. Whether you're emailing it to yourself, putting it in a Google Doc from your Word doc, no matter what you're doing, get it on a jump drive, get it on external, email it to yourself daily, or put it in a Word doc daily to make sure that nothing happens to it, because I have had Word docs or Google Docs lost as well. So nothing is safe. Always take precautions and do this every single day. Not every couple of days, every single day, because the one day you don't do it will be the day you lose a big chunk of it. So always, always, always back it up every single way you can, and then make sure you are protecting yourself as you are writing. You're using your blue light blocking glasses, you're sitting up straight so that you don't injure your back or your shoulders, because it does put a lot of strain on your neck and on your back as you're looking down to type. You want to make sure you're taking care of your hands. So if you have issues like that, you might want to use a Wacom Intuos Pro editing tablet. This is basically like a mouse, except it works with a pen, so it's a lot less stress on your wrists. It's great for doing your editing or for working. You're not using a trackpad. It's not hurting your wrists or your hands. And you want to make sure that you're, of course, sitting up straight, using an editing tablet, you're using your blue light blocking glasses, you're getting up and walking around, you are stretching out your eyes, so every couple of minutes look up and look across the room so that you can stretch your eyes out from the close-up work to the far-away things, and just make sure that you are aware of the colors you're using on screen and the things surrounding you, and that you have proper lighting and all those things to make sure you don't injure yourself as you are doing your writing. And of course, if you've got questions, hit me up. Now for me, it's incredibly important to take my physical health into consideration while I'm writing, and I love the simplicity of only having 3 screens on my computer while I'm working so that I don't get distracted, so that I don't find other things. And for you, if you are someone who wants to make sure that you stay really focused on your writing, that you have all of your information available to you at a moment's notice without having to pull up extra files or without having to go to search for things, where you can always just look to one side or the other and just check your information and move forward quickly, this is going to be a great process for you. I am an extremely fast-paced writer. I write full-length novels in 9.5 days with only a handful of typos and grammatical errors, and so if you are someone who wants to move quickly, who wants to produce books in a fast-paced way, who wants to get your words down without wasting a lot of time, this is incredibly important and incredibly helpful because everything is right there before you and you don't have to waste a lot of time, and you have no excuses for not moving forward with your book or getting distracted, finding something else, or not being sure where you're going because it's all there on screen for you. But this is not the only way to write. Stay tuned, hit the subscribe and notification bell, because in the next episode, we're talking to another author and seeing how her version of writing is completely different from mine. So if you don't connect with mine, you're gonna love who's coming next, and next, and next, and next, and you will be able to find your best fit somewhere in this series. So stay tuned, this is gonna be a good one. Hit me up down below and let me know, is this something you think is gonna work for you, or are you going to try this method? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know who else you would like to see as part of this series.